thank you, Brittany, for this interview.
Thank you for having me.
It's really exciting for us to have you and be able to share top secrets that you won't give anyone else just in our interview. Let's start for the people that are going to buy your book and haven't watched the documentary yet. When will you start your book telling us about the shocking moments of truth?
Yes.
You writing, well, you had several moments like that, but the moment you were riding a car with two federal agents and just getting the understanding of this new path, of what you did and what comes ahead.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Of course. It was in moments like that where I realized how complex the digital landscape has become. And that because data is now the most valuable asset on planet Earth, that governments and private companies have been scrambling to own more data than anyone else. And what that means is that it's become a power struggle. Mm-hmm. And this type of power struggle means that people are buying your attention, they're buying your data, they're buying your time, and that's bought and sold and traded around the world for people to be more powerful than the next person. And therefore, your time, your attention, your personal information is for sale to the highest bidder. And therefore, very powerful forces have been using our information in order to manipulate our digital lives to get us to do whatever it happens to be. And when you're in a car with federal agents going to talk about how data has been abused in elections, you start to realize really how bad it's become.
Tell us, people obviously may know you from when you came forward and that you say, I worked for Cambridge Analytica. Tell us about this archetype of evil men, if you will, of Alexander Nix and Chris Wiley. How has your perception changed throughout these years now?
Well, I definitely do a lot more due diligence on people before I choose to work with them, and I'm a lot more aware of, my own time and if people are trying to manipulate me.
Sure, because I was going to ask you about this seduction part.
Yeah, absolutely, because you don't actually realize how vulnerable you are to being manipulated until you look back. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20, and that's why writing this book was even a big learning experience for me, because I was able to see kind of how blind I was at the time and how easy it was for me to be pushed in one direction or the other by people who were older and more powerful than me.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, well, there was some point in the book that I started understanding about, in a way, there will always be a Cambridge Analytica.
Yes.
And an Alexander Nix. So what's your take on that?
I think that, this is one of the reasons why I wrote this book, in order to raise awareness. Data is not going to stop being a part of our lives at any time. Actually, every single day we're producing exponentially more data than the day before. So that's why I think it's so important to talk about this right now, because before we are producing data with everything that we do, from our coffee machines to our refrigerators, before we get there, we need to really figure out, with the amount of data we're producing now, how are we going to manage it? Who is going to be in control of it? Who owns it? And how do we assert our rights to our personal information? If we're going to own that, then we should have the ability to actually choose who it's going to, what it's going to be used for. And if we don't want it to be used for certain things, we should have the right to delete and the right to say no.
Exactly. Let's talk about also the part of, as I said, there's always going to be a Cambridge Analytica. There's also going to be social media.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Do you have profiles on social media? Are you off the grid? How is your normal day-to-day life?
You might be surprised to find out I do still have a Facebook account. But, social media was created in order to connect us, in order to make all of the world be able to better communicate with each other. And I think that's very important. All I want is for companies like Facebook to become more responsible and more transparent, and actually tell us what data they are taking from us and when, where is it going, what is it going to be used for. And if we don't want it to be used in that way, we should have the right to say no. But if we are happy to share our data, we should be able to share in the benefits, because trust me, these companies are making a lot of money off of our data, and somehow all we're getting is free access to a platform.
Yeah, and talking about the profiling of you get these companies get our data, that we are targeted, we are labeled, and so on. It struck me a lot that, for example, you talk about the people who are easier to persuade.
Yes.
And we also in the magazine try always to say, like, think about things, don't react, and even manage your emotions.
Exactly.
Part of the easy reaction, the anger, it's part of the most persuasive people, right?
Yes, because those types of people tend to make snap decisions. And all of us can be persuadable in some way or another, but there are people that do make decisions more quickly without thinking about it. And unfortunately, social media caters to that. If people are angry, if people are constantly clicking on things, then it actually becomes addictive. And it continues to force you to feel that way and show you other people's posts that are angry and overly emotional. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with social media right now, is it is actually promoting negativity as opposed to positivity, which is what it was originally meant to do.
Yeah, but it was, I think at some point, like all these Microsoft and so on, they kind of analyzed, the heat of endorphins and dopamine and everything that you get of sharing the likes. And so we're being manipulated, like even from the Nazis, the Goebbels, the propaganda. Like all of that comes, I mean, this is a planet of duality, constant duality. It was supposed to be good and so on, but they're banking on that.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. I mean, your wall on social media is designed to be addictive in the same way that a slot machine is at a casino. Think about that.
And probably hit the same spot as when you're addicted to cocaine or something.
Absolutely. And so there's now a lot of studies that are coming out and showing the negative effects of the addictiveness of different parts of the internet, but especially social media platforms that have been designed especially to steal your time and attention. And it's really now a platform for people to be able to spend as much money as possible in order to buy your time and buy your attention and make you more addicted to their message. And I think that's a big problem because most people don't realize it's happening. Like, digital literacy and awareness is so important, and I think we're really at a very low level of digital literacy around the world for how much of a digital life we actually lead every day. I think it's so important for people to understand what are their data rights, how do they protect themselves online, what are basic cybersecurity protocols, how do you become ethical on social media when you are interacting with other people, how do you identify cyberbullying and stop it for children, or identify disinformation. All of these are skills that I think people need to have these days to be successful and to actually contribute positively to the online community. But we're only starting to get there. This is the first year that they're starting to teach something called digital intelligence education in schools. So this is something new. I think it's going to become more integrated into our daily lives, or at least for children who have not yet learned the bad habits that we unfortunately now have.
Well, now everybody is a victim with these stories at play. Which governments do you think will be the fastest to protect their people, their users?
Well, luckily for everyone that lives in Europe, GDPR has already gone into enactment last May, and there are some parts of that have been very difficult for governments and companies to enforce, but also it's a step in the right direction. It's taken the United States a lot longer to get there. Only starting in January next month will there be the first piece of real privacy legislation in the United States. So it's the California Consumer Privacy Act. And there are big companies like Microsoft, big banks like Wells Fargo that are saying, okay, we're going to apply California's privacy law to the whole United States because that's the direction we're heading, and even though there isn't a national or federal law yet, it's coming. And I think a lot of countries around the world are starting to realize that legislating and regulating this industry is needed, and it's required at this point because the industry has become so much of a gray area, and it's so easy for people to be abused without this type of regulation. Now, we can have the best laws and regulation in the world, but you actually need technology in order to implement it. It's really technology that will give us transparency into what data is being collected about us, opt-in infrastructure, terms and conditions that we understand, and the ability to actually manage our own data in a way that makes sense and is easy for people of any education level, and to know what you're actually agreeing to. And if you're not interested in what they're asking you to do with your data, then you can say no. But we're not there yet.
Because when you download an app, all the terms of agreement, they're like super long, and people are like, don't care, no, don't care. So they trap you. Like,
terms and conditions are really written in order to manipulate you into making choices you wouldn't make if you fully understood what you were agreeing to. When was the last time you read the terms and conditions when you downloaded an app?
I tried, but even the way it's written, it's a little bit confusing. So you don't know if you're letting them or not letting them.
They do that on purpose. And trust me, you're letting them. They're trying to hide as many things in that agreement as possible so that they can take your data when they want to and how they want to and use it for whatever without you actually opting into that. And I think that's a really big problem, the lack of transparency, and what I really call, companies have become kleptocracies when it comes to data. They're literally stealing as much as possible from you because they profit from it financially.
And as you said, the unchecked power of digital kleptocracy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has been unchecked just because it's been an industry that has been vastly unregulated, especially in the United States.
But it's like in your book you say about how Amazon and all of, they don't have, they're not paying, for example, taxes. No, how, and they're killing the earth with so much shipping, and there's no regulation at all. But it's like the money, the greed, the dirty money is driving crazy everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so sad that it's become that way, because there are a lot of amazing things that you can use data for. But if you're tricking everybody into giving away their personal information instead of having them consensually really opt in, then we're just not having a real relationship with companies. There's no trust there, and I think that lack of consumer trust really needs to be fixed. I don't trust a lot of online platforms anymore, even though I used to think that they had the best of intentions and that it was a good tool for me to use. And now I really think, oh wow, okay, they were only giving me access to a communications platform so that they could take as much information about me as possible. And it's pretty uncomfortable to think that companies don't care about having a trustworthy relationship with consumers. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no. Do you think, let me make the analogy. I don't know if, do you know this page? I forgot the name. Oh, there's a mom that started calling these fast food industries and telling what's in your meat, what's in your food baby or something like that. And they didn't respond as much, but at some point she got the information out, and now she has a website, and then she made a book, and people started caring because at the beginning it's like, but I'm eating this pizza dough and I don't care, and she's like, oh, you don't have trouble sleeping. So this is kind of the same, no? It's like, what's the matter? They're gonna have my pictures. I don't care. I really want you to tell everything you want, what's at stake. Our democracy is at stake, and big things like that are at stake.
Absolutely. Just like that woman wanting people to understand what they're putting in their bodies, we should understand what we're actually doing when we're using our digital devices. What is actually happening? Do these companies have access to our camera and our microphone at all times? Actually, a lot of the apps on our phone do. Think about that. So we're actually installing spyware on a daily basis by accepting cookies, where we're being tracked and followed around the internet with everything that we do. And most people don't understand that, so they can't protect themselves from that. And so what's really at stake is our freedom. Our democracy is definitely at risk, because this lack of regulation means that as long as you have money, you can exert power over people, because you have access to their data, you have access to putting whatever you want in front of them, and we don't have any right to stop it.
And create a fake reality. the fake news are creating a fake reality.
I mean, that's one of the biggest problems these days, especially when Facebook has decided that anything a politician says is newsworthy, and therefore they're not going to fact check any of those ads. I mean, that's really scary to think that politicians or ads paid for by politicians can say whatever they want, and most people will never know if they've actually lied to certain members of the public because they can be running hundreds or thousands of campaigns at the same time, all shown to different groups of people, and they don't know what the person next to them is seeing. So it's just really easy to be manipulated these days, and that's why I've been pushing so much for legislation and regulation to really get up to scratch with protecting citizens, because we're just not there.
And tell us about Own Your Data, your campaign.
Of course. So I started the Own Your Data campaign in order to really raise awareness of the fact that we, as the producers of the world's most valuable asset, somehow have been given no access to that value. And what does that actually mean? If the most valuable thing that I'm producing every day is my data, and anyone can take it from me and do whatever they want with it, and I don't have any legal recourse, I don't have any way to stop that from happening, that's a huge problem. So Own Your Data really talks about transparency, about where your data is going, for you to have the option to opt in and really have real informed consent, actually understanding what you're going to do, and then to choose whether you want to do that or not. And if you do want to share your data, because there's a lot of good reasons to share your data, for many reasons, but for example, we could probably cure cancer pretty soon if all of us had a safe way to share our medical data with researchers. So the idea that if you own your data and someone's going to financially benefit from it, you should have partial ownership to that value. So you should know what's going to be done with your data, be able to consent to it, and be able to share in a cut of the profits.
Of course, because
So,
you're giving them away.
Absolutely.
Without you, there's nothing.
Absolutely, and you think historically when powerful people from certain countries have gone into someone else's country and stolen their natural resources, that we look back on that and we think, oh my God, that was a horrible part of history and it's something that needs to be repaired. But right now, the most valuable asset on earth is being taken from us every day, and most people are unfortunately very unaware of it. So the campaign is really to get people not only aware, but to understand that there is something that we can do. You can call your legislators, these things can change. You can use technology in an ethical way, and there are good reasons to share your data, but before we start sharing our medical data for research, we need to know that it's going to be secure, where it's going to go, and that we have some control over how it's used, right?
And if they do wrong, that there's a way to punish them. No, there are consequences.
Yeah, the legal recourse. So again, on the concept of Own Your Data, I like to talk about, yes, your having access to your data and your privacy should be a fundamental human right. But also, you should own your data like your property, because it is a very valuable asset that you produce every day. And you know what? If I'm producing data in Facebook, I'm totally comfortable with Facebook having some ownership over the data I produce in their platform. That's fine. But I should also have some ownership, and then we can share in the profits together. So on the ownership level, I really like to talk about property rights. Like if you use Airbnb, if you are going to lend your house, you're going to rent your house out, the people who are going to come to your house tell you who they are, how long they're going to be there, what they're going to use your house for, and you agree on a price, and you get paid before you hand away the keys. And that's really the way that I see the future of data ownership.
Okay, that's good analogy.
Thank you.
Will people have a fair election after these stories?
I think right now it's really difficult to say that our democracy is protected enough that elections will be free and fair. Right now, I think we're really at this turning point where we have to get the legislation and regulation right. We have to have more transparent technology, and we have to have an educated and aware public. And until we have all of that, I really think that political manipulation is just too easy in kind of a dark world of data trading. And until we actually get our laws up to scratch, and until we have real technology to help implement those laws, and people understand what it is that they're doing, it's going to be really difficult to have free and fair elections. Yes.
Tell us about your documentary.
Yes. Wow, that was so incredible to participate in that project. The day that I became a whistleblower and my first articles came out in The Guardian, I got a call from one of the directors, and he said, Kareem Amer actually, he said, we've been trying to make a movie about data since the Sony hack in 2014. And we've been trying to figure out where's the real story, what's the most important story, and how do we tell it. And we just saw your videos and articles, and we think, wow, you really have a story about data to tell. So can we come and interview you? I said, well, I'm on the way to the airport. I'm flying to Thailand. So if you want to come to Thailand, you can interview me there.
Yes.
And he said yes. And so that the scene where I'm in the pool, that was actually the first time I met the directors. That was our first interview.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you were, I appreciate you were so open about it, and because it's so natural, because they're documenting history made.
Absolutely.
And you're getting your reactions and saying no, and you're watching the disposition, and it's like, no, that wasn't the way it happened.
Yeah.
It's really striking.
Thank you. We worked together for about 9 months. The first few months I was mic'd up every day, morning, noon, and night. They came with me to all my meetings. They even helped me make some meetings so that we could really make sure that I was in front of the right thought leaders and we were having the right conversations about this so that we can educate the public on all of the different facets of why this issue is so important to us.
Okay. And any advice on people of not leaving the grid, but getting off the grid in a healthy way, or just sharing, of knowing what they're sharing? Because as you said, it's your credit card, it's the phone, it's, everything. Yeah. What's the most dangerous? I think you.
What I think is most dangerous is the fact that most people are blissfully unaware of how their data is used and what it actually means to use certain platforms. You would never have someone walk into your office and sit a pile of paper contracts on a table and you flip to the back page and sign it without reading it. Flip to the back page and sign it, and keep on doing that. But that's what you do every single day online. Every website that you go to and you accept cookies, you're signing a contract without reading it. Every time you download an app without looking at the terms and conditions, you're signing a contract without reading it. And that's really scary, actually.
And they're reading your messages and getting your pictures and all of that, right? Everything.
So I think it's the lack of awareness, because a lot of people feel like they can trust platforms like that, and they're not thinking about what they're sending to their friend in a private message. They're not thinking about personal information that they might be saving in their Google account. They're not thinking about where that data is going, where it's being held, and who gets access to that. And I think that's how we're going to make a lot of change, where once people fully understand what it means to interact in a digital world and how they can protect themselves, then we're starting to see a lot of change. There's at least a lot of awareness, and I'm very honored that The Great Hack and also my book Targeted have been able to contribute to that awareness.
And the last question: how do you? What's your sense of people? Working alongside with you, maybe at the beginning you were kind of worried, and how are you? How are things? Because just watch the documentary for us is new, and it's we don't know what's gonna happen, but up to date, how are you?
Right. I didn't know what the reaction was going to be to the film. I didn't know what the reaction was going to be to my book, and I have been so humbled and honored by all of the people around the world that have reached out to me to say, I also think this is the most important issue. How can I help? What can I do? How do I contribute to the Own Your Data campaign? How do I talk to my legislators saying that I want them to pass privacy laws? Explain to me how to do it and I'll do it. And the immense support has just been so amazing. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect, hundreds of thousands or millions of messages coming at me from around the world on different platforms. So now I see social media quite positively, because I log into one of my accounts and it's all of these incredible people from all over the place, from different countries, telling me, that something that I've said or done really moved them and is important to them, and what can they do to contribute. So it's just been amazing.
And then you're on the right side of history.
Well, I think we all have the opportunity to do that. It's never too late to do the right thing, and it's really easy to actually make a difference if you decide to care. You can call your legislators, you can tell somebody about how they can protect themselves online. There's little things that you can do every day, and I really think we're reaching a crux where there is public awareness and people are starting to care, and governments want to protect their citizens. Companies are starting to make the ethical decisions to be more transparent with their consumers, and so I think we're really headed in a better direction.
Thank you so much, Brittany.
Thank you.